Okay, it is 10 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. And I will do the land acknowledgement. Peace River School Division respectfully acknowledges that the land on which we gather is located within the Treaty 8 territory, a traditional meeting ground and home of the ancestral First Peoples, the Cree and Dene, as well as the Métis. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and for those who have gone before us. We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. Okay, we will go through the consent agenda and let me know if there's anything you want pulled. 2.1 is the minutes from the regular board meeting on December 18th. 2.2, substantive motion. Thank you. 2.3 is the financial monthly report. 2.4 standing committee reports. There are none. 2.5 trustee school and community reports. 2.5.1 is the May 13th assignment school council. 2.5.2 is September 16th Fairview High parent council. 2.5.3 is November 13th Heinz Creek School Council. 2.5.4 is November 13th Fairview High School Council. 2.5.5 November 18th Meadow Simon School Council. 2.5.6 is January 6th Nampa School Council. Superintendent's 2.6 is superintendent's report. 2.6.1 AP 251 literary materials selection. Hold on, sure. 2.6.1. Okay. And then 2.6.1.1 administrative procedures new and up. 2.7 correspondence. 2.7.1 is December 16th letter from letter to PSBAA's letter to EPC on system review. 2.7.2 is the December 16th letter from PSBAA to the Premier on 2.7.2. Okay, 2.7.3 is December 17th letter from the Grand Yellowhead, letter to the MD over regarding flashing lights. 2.7.4 is a December 17th letter from Grand Yellowhead from about communication protocols. 2.7.5 December 17th, they wrote a lot of letters concerning rural small school grants. 2.7.6 December 18th letter from infrastructure concerning Dixonville property. Okay, I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda with 2.2, 2.6.1, 2.7.2, and 2.7.6. Edith makes the motion. All in favor? We are 6 today. Okay, and now we'll go through the rest of the agenda. Nothing under strategic. 5.1 capital planning. We'll have the capital planning conversation. 5.2 updated enrollment projections. 5.3 administrative procedures review. 5.4 the 26-27 draft school year calendar. 5.5 standing committee agenda items is 5.5.1 joint municipality meeting and 5.5.1.1 terms of reference. There are no departmental presentations and there's no quarterly report and there are no delegations. We'll go into camera after lunch. 6.1. Few topics to go in camera with. 6.2, we'll go over 6.2.1, policy 8, board committees for first reading. And 6.2.2, policy 9, board representatives, first reading. 6.3.1, ASBA, 6.3.2, PSBAA, and 6.3.3, Rural Caucus. And then we will go over 6.4, the board annual work plan, and 6.4.1, trustee calendar, and 6.4.1.1, attendance at the Alberta Rural Education Symposium, and 6.4.1.2, attendance of the CAS Indigenous Education Rally. I have a motion to approve the agenda. Janet makes that. All in favor? We are 6. Okay, let's roll into 5.1, capital planning conversation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a very brief introductory piece from me, and then turn it back to you to chair further discussion. So, as you know, in the fall, the previous board tweaked and updated its capital plan, which had some significant detail regarding the school structure in Fairview. Subsequent to that, of course, an announcement came about the status of the Northwestern Polytechnic operation in Fairview. So there's been lots of conversations that have unfolded since then, and mobilization within the community to look at pursuing various options to continue to maintain a college presence within the community. Obviously, one of the pillar pieces with the board's capital plan was to partner with Northwestern Polytechnic around some sort of collegiate school arrangement and so on. With that now at least parked temporarily, and given that it could take some time for this to settle out, we thought it might be appropriate to have a preliminary conversation today about the capital plan, which we will have to update again by the end of March. Yeah. So at your March meeting, by that time you'll have to have an updated capital plan with a set of priorities and so on. So the real question becomes whether or not the circumstance in Fairview now is such that it will result in the board having to shift its focus temporarily with regard to its capital planning. And so I understand, at least in general terms, that the objective from the group within the community of Fairview that's mobilizing to save the college, that their objective ideally would be to continue to have a college presence and course offerings for September coming. But of course, it's early days and nobody really knows for sure if that will come to pass. So in light of that, even if there was a college presence in September, I guess the question then becomes, who's running that operation and the extent to which they would be agreeable to or eager to partner with us in some fashion as we mobilize to look at the school structure and organization within that community. The second piece then is we do have some significant priority needs within Peace River with regard to the way that schools are configured there right now. And we do have some funding, value scoping funding for both those communities, for the community of Fairview and the community of Peace River. So I guess I'll pause there. I'll stop there just to say that it's probably a real good time to at least do a preliminary conversation about the trustee thoughts around capital planning. And then with a view to perhaps coming back in February with further details around that, and then strategically positioning the board for its work to approve an updated capital plan for submission to government at the March meeting.
Thank you.
I don't know, Madam Chair, if Rhonda would like to add to that or anything.
No, I think it's important for us to have some conversations. We have $50,000 pre-planning funding for value scoping for both communities. So $50,000 in total. Each session is probably going to cost 40. So we'll figure that out. Yeah, have a conversation so that I can begin a draft of the capital plan to bring back for you guys to take a look at before we get to March. So that we're ready to submit something in March.
Can I ask, Madam Chair, what's the value scoping mean? Is it community engagement or is it just us?
Yeah, no, a value scoping session in a community includes all of the stakeholders. So you'll have representatives from the administrators in schools, teachers, students at higher grade levels, community members, all of that to discuss what is it that a community needs or wants.
And can I ask, like, what's the time frame for that value scoping to get underway?
That from beginning to end, it takes, it's going to take several months because we have to reach out to architects and cost consultants, because ultimately what we get when we leave a value scoping session is information on the type of school, what it kind of looks like, so that I can put into the capital plan all of the planning information and the planning checklist that we need so that the government will look at our project.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, if I could just add one other thing, just to further respond to the question. So typically value scoping is you go in open-ended, you work with the stakeholders who are close to the school, plus community politicians and other user groups, and you talk about, well, what is the need, perceived need within the community, subsequent to which the consulting firm puts together a report that becomes the basis of moving forward with a new construction or modernization and so on. That's the typical way forward. Last fall, the previous board moved forward with a more focused value scoping to say, hey, we're going to go and do a value scoping around the feasibility of a new 7 to 12 school and a redeveloped K to 6 school. So the board at that time moved forward in a way that was a little more pre-defined, if I could put it that way. However, both processes end up unfolding in very similar kinds of ways, because even when the board went forward and said, was more specific about what it was going for, the value scoping process would determine whether or not that was feasible or not, or if indeed it was actually much more feasible to do a modernization of 2 existing facilities, or yes, build one new one, and perhaps the new one that you build is a K to 6 versus a 7 to 12. So that's all part and parcel of it. Some of the trustees here have been involved in a very unusual value scoping in Fairview, if I can put it that way. There were probably 70, 80, maybe 100 plus people in total and that was at the college, and it was a very, very, very convoluted 2-day event. Typically, they're much smaller, about 15, 20 people.
Oh,
yeah. But, with all key stakeholders represented.
so what was the outcome of that?
That was very interesting. The outcome of that was, at the time, Grand Prairie Catholic, now I can't, we've gone all over so many different scenarios. The end of that was a K-9 for both divisions? No.
K-9
For
Catholic
Catholic,
school,
and then a K-12.
K-6 public school,
Yeah.
on the Fairview High School site, and a 7 to 12 public school, with the 10 through 12 being Catholic at the college.
More or less
So
saying,
yeah,
we'll give up 10 to 12. to the
Yeah,
Catholic
basically.
division.
Yeah.
But that was the other division that no longer is part of their.
and then it just all kind of went right sideways after that.
Oh, everything went sideways.
Well, because the Catholic parents in Fairview said, we're not having anything to do with this.
Oh.
We're not getting rid of our grade 10, 11, and 12. So they essentially said, Grand Prairie Catholic, go away. Holy Family Catholic, please come in and look after this and have a 10 through 12. So that's kind of where that went. But the process was too large. There was too many people, and this is my opinion, there was too many people involved in it that really shouldn't have been involved in it. And it was, even though it was over a full 2 days, it rushed into some decisions that didn't fit well with the community. The the public school parents were no more happy. They didn't want their kids to be down at the college, right?
Oh,
And so there was,
it was inconclusive.
Yeah, but at the time, the consultant that was running it all was like, I've never seen such a cohesive group.
Oh,
He
Yeah.
kept saying, he's like, I've never seen everyone get on the same page so quick. Cause at that, when we left that 2 days, it was like, everybody was on board.
oh,
And he had never seen that before.
And I think from the community's perspective, at that time, even we could see the writing on the wall, what GPRC was trying, or what Grand Prairie was trying to do. And so we were trying to save our campus, and we didn't see as like kids, when they're choosing a place to go, don't want to go to a college that has a bunch of kids at it, right? You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
do you see that? So we were worried, I think the community was looking at perspective. We're trying to save the college. If we put a bunch of high school, junior high school kids there, people don't want, like college kids want to get away from high school. They don't want to come to a place
Yeah.
that's just an extended high school.
Yeah.
So that was the feeling that I heard at that time.
Yeah.
We're trying to save the college.
Because at that point, there were kids at the college campus.
So
Because
is
that's
it-
when,
Possible that the consultant misread the room.
no,
no,
we
that's
were,
not,
I was in all of the separate sessions. There were 6 or more different groups and everybody was there, like, the Catholic, trustees were saying, yes, we'll talk to the bishop and, you know, we'll get out of Greek 10 to 12, you guys go ahead and knock yourselves out. And then,
but they were in a weird position too, because they were out of their school, right? They,
Yeah,
they
their
weren't
school
in
was
their school.
closed.
They were at the campus. So it was all just,
it was a perfect storm.
Or, yeah, there's another word.
anyway, so here's where we're at right
Okay.
now. Our capital plan is 1, Fairview K-12 collegiate school solution project. 2, pre-planning funding for a value scoping session in the town of Peace River. And 3, pre-planning funding for value scoping regarding the modernization of Worsley Center.
So
So no matter what's happened, where do we feel like we're at now?
So I'm just wondering, where are you seeing that? Because I just don't see an.
Oh, sorry, I just.
Wanda,
What?
if you go to the main page, the main PRSD
Okay.
page, the
Yeah.
home page, and just scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a bunch of things there, and capital plan is one of them.
Not quite the bottom, just scroll down
Wow.
a little bit and under areas to
Below the
explore.
pictures.
Did we not make a motion about this at one of our other meetings, or was that not a formal?
That,
I thought we spoke about how value scoping would have no value because, I mean, the population of Fairview, honestly, if we are not successful in getting a college, their population.
well, and that's the conversation we had about the, are we moving back forward with value scoping? Because at one point we were doing it, gonna start the process in the fall. And we said, well, I think we're not at a good place, but this is a capital plan that we have to
Okay.
decide if we're gonna update it to, because its deadline is March.
Okay.
So this is just the initial conversation we'll have to then bring probably a draft to February, to then bring the final for approval in our March meeting.
Yes. So, and Madam Chair, we could just say one other thing for added clarity, to pick up on what Trustee Shabelsky mentioned. So really, this is what this is about, because of the fact that we don't know what's going to shake out in Fairview now. If indeed the college is closed, then the number of students drops off significantly, and now all of a sudden, the school that you're going to end up getting built would have even more restrictions than it otherwise would. So the question becomes for this board whether or not you want to shift priorities, if I could put it as simple as that. Do you want to do an order shift to say, okay, let's move Peace River schools as number 1 now, and move the Fairview schools down to number 2 or 3, depending on how things shake out. So one of the important pieces will be, when will the group that's mobilized and has a proposal made, what's the timeline around feedback? So if somebody were to say, well, you know what, the answer will be known, just for argument's sake here now, by mid-February, then the timing would be really good for this board, because we have a few weeks to reconsider the capital plan in line with that decision. But if the timeline is not until April, May, June, July, August, then that sort of is also a very important consideration. And so that's what the purpose of this conversation is, like, does the board strategically feel that the current capital plan is the way to proceed with perhaps tweaking of the language for Fairview, given what's transpired, or does the board consider a reprioritization given the unknowns that are currently at play in Fairview?
Okay, I would say definitely that should be put on hold, because although I'm fairly confident that something will be going in September, it will take at least 2 or 3 years for us to
Figure out what it is.
figure out what it is and what the scope of it is. Will we be gaining population, or will we, I just think the population variables are just to make any sort of informed decision.
Yeah.
So I would put Fairview. I would move it down the capital.
You would feel
plan list.
comfortable moving them now.
As long as our buildings are, maintained and.
Yes. Okay. Do we want to do speakers list, or do we just openly talk?
I'll talk next, if that's okay. Janet and I are on that Fairview committee, although we haven't met. My understanding is that we probably will know something in the next month or so, kind of like, if there's a definite no, or probably we could go ahead, but still, like Janet said, we won't know what that looks like until, if it's approved, Advanced Education approves it moving forward, what's it gonna look like in the fall. So I don't believe that the Fairview Valley scoping can remain as number one. I think it would have to move down. It's whether it moves down to number 2, or does it move all the way to number 3 and worse and moves to number 2 and Peace River being number 1. From a selfish standpoint, I don't want to lose any of the money that was garnered for Fairview Valley scoping, because if something comes up and it hits the bricks and it looks good, maybe we could be doing value scoping in Fairview as early as this fall. But if the money is already spent, then we would be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like they're from Prairie, community know what the community feels.
I guess funding wise, Rhonda, with what the value scoping going on or being planned for Worsley, I mean, obviously if we do Peace River and Worsley, we're going to be spent all the funding we had plus some extra. Then if we decided to do or really want to do Fairview, because that project would still be in itself the easiest one to move forward and probably the number 1 project again. Where would we come up with the funding? Can we go back to the trough again, or?
So, because the 50,000 we got, was technically for Peace River and Worsley? Fairview, yes.
Yeah.
So really, if we moved,
It doesn't matter where we move Fairview. We've received pre-planning
we
funding
received it.
for Fairview and Peace River. If we move Worsley up to number 2 and we apply for pre-planning funding for value scoping Worsley, that funding would be for Worsley. So the money we have will not cover 2 value scoping sessions. We might be able to use IMR dollars if we do it right. But no matter where Fairview is on the list, because we've received funding for it, we've received it.
So does moving Fairview down, does that change anything about the actual title of it? It's still a K-12 collegiate school. We still keep that, just we shift the order of things. Is that what?
I would
Does
think at this
everything
time,
change?
there's
Everything.
no reason to change it until we know more,
Okay, so that,
right?
so we're just shifting the orders.
Well, we could do whatever.
Okay, but
I don't think that there was ever any plan to move any further forward until the value scoping. So the value scoping would be the first thing to happen, and then if it changed, would be after the value scoping. I mean, I don't think there's for me personally, I'm not really worried about, our buildings are in really good shape in Fairview, and I think we've got some time. So if we were to change the capital plan to do value scoping in Peace River and apply for funding for value scoping in Worsley and make Fairview value scoping number 3, we can always move that if we already have the funding for Fairview, so if something come up really fast, then we can move the value scoping up if we wanted to. But that way we get apply for funding for Worsley, and if that funding does come in, then we can do Worsley at the same time.
I think just in it, if that's how we, wherever we move Fairview, then we communication of that, it's not that we don't think it's any less important, we just want to make sure it's the right fit for when all the decisions are made. Did you want that?
It'll take, yeah, I would say it would take a good 3 years
To establish
what's gonna happen there.
Yeah.
And some of the feedback from the community was you're moving too fast again anyways. You did that fast thing at the college, value scoping, and it didn't work, and now you're rushing the meeting. So I think if, for those of us who are talking to people out in the community, we'll definitely let them know that we're not throwing it out. It just logically doesn't make any sense right now to do value scoping for when you really don't know who all the players are going to be.
So would we move Fairview to number 3 and just bump the other two up? Is there any?
How urgent is yours?
The budget issues are underutilized spaces, so, the Worsley School is significantly underutilized. There's some issues there today that might close the school today, but it's not something that's huge. It's just the type of issue that it is. So all of our schools, there's no school that's urgent that we have to replace it because all of the school buildings are in good shape. I mean, there's things in all of the schools, but underutilization is the biggest challenge that
What, and in Peace River, do we feel? Because a lot of it's based on how the grades are configured. Is that a huge issue?
Madam Chair, I think Peace River,
Needs some attention.
the configuration of schools in Peace River is far from ideal. K to 4, and then you go 5 to 8, and then a 9 to 12. Ideally, if you were going to have 3 schools, it will be a K to 3, a 4 to 6, 7 to 12, or 4 to 9, 10 to 12. However, the value scoping might determine that with the population, it's a 2-school system. That's what the value scoping would do. The configuration in Peace River, I'm not sure how long ago it came into play. There's people around the table who probably have a good guess on that. But there was a time when middle schools was the hot topic. Like if you didn't have a middle school in your jurisdiction, you were nobody. And so many school boards actually moved to create these grades 5 to 8 schools because the research was suggesting that was more optimal for learning and so on. However, if you talk to practitioners, they'll say it makes no sense to have a K to 4 school and then kids go off to grade 5 to 8. Like the system is set up Div 1 or primary, K to 3, elementary 4 to 6, and then junior, senior high 7 to 12, either 7 to 9, 10 to 12, or 7 to 12. That's the normal configuration throughout North America. And so we have space issues and both in some instances, sometimes a little bit of crowding, but more often now than not, our current reality is that there's some extra space in the schools in some of our schools in Peace River. And our grade configuration is probably also contributing to the fact that our enrollments are not what they should be. We have the other issue in Peace River, which is the French immersion issue. I'll reframe it to say dual programming issue. And viability of a dual program with such a small number of students. I'm not saying that a value scoping would actually fix that, but clearly many conversations have unfolded, and I think it's fair to say, Alida and Rhonda at our table about the need to shift the configuration in Peace River. What that looks like would be determined in the value scoping, unless the board decided, well, we think the best solution is, and put that forward, like they prepared to, and then the value scoping would still determine if that's the most feasible or not.
So are you thinking like a K to 6 and then a 7 to 12?
Well, we really don't know. If we were doing it all over and you were building, and you had money to build 2 schools, so one is the funding that would be available. Yeah, K to 6 and 7 to 12.
Yeah.
And that would actually mirror the grade configuration of our competing school board there,
Mhm.
which is not only, which is extremely significant.
We've had discussions in the past with parents, I have personally, and, you know, why are you going to the school you're going to? Well, if my kid starts in kindergarten and they have to go to 3 different schools throughout their lifetime, I'll go to the other school board where they only have to go to 2.
So Madam Chair, just to substantiate that point, this board went through a process 3 years ago with Napa School. And one of the things that was done that 4 years ago was a tracking of students and where they went post grade 6. So for students who actually made it all the way through to grade 6, in their grade 7 year, in many instances, the vast majority of them did not go to TA Norris. They ended up going to Glen Mary School because it was one last transition, grade 7 to 12. And also recognize that if you're going to TA Norris, you're not going there as a grade 5 student with all of the grade 5 cohorts. You're going and you're joining grade 7 students who've already been in that school for 2 years. That's a deterrent for not only moms and dads, but for kids, especially at the junior high level. They're going to be moving into a school, joining junior high kids that they've never ever been seen before. Whereas going into a grade 7 to 12 school, they're going in as grade 7s and they're on equal footing with all other grade 7s. They're all arriving in this building for the first time. So that would be if we were choosing and then with limited budgets at K-6 and the 7 to 12. Would you agree with that as well? Lena?
Yeah, that continues to be a problem today. Our Napa kids this year are planning Glen Mary. They're not planning Peace River.
Yeah, grade students really like moving the groups at their end of their grade 6 year, like in a K-6, like they really enjoy it.
I think honestly, the sooner we can change our grade configurations, the better it will be. It's just our schools in Peace River are, well, they are underutilized, but unfortunately we can't put all the grades where they need to be.
No.
Even, yeah.
We've looked at that. I mean, you could probably move grade 8s, then you still have the problem, right? You got 5 to 7 and now 8 to 12.
We could probably put the grade 4s into
TA Norris.
TA Norris if we move the grade 8s to the high school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is some work that we can certainly do to, but it doesn't.
Is there an
fix-
addition you could do to one of the schools to make it a K-6 school?
Yeah,
Like with the
that's-
modernization and
that-
addition?
that's all
That would be, that would come under a value scoping section. TA Norris is the school that needs the most attention in like probably the division. But to not look at the whole picture and do something with TA Norris would not be good.
Yeah.
So there's bigger questions. There's the most underutilized and needs the most help in of the Peace River schools.
Do we have the land? Like to add on to one of the schools? I don't care which one.
I don't think, TA, there's other problems there because if we were looking at 2 schools, there's no land at Springfield. Like there's nowhere to move at Springfield. The high school, if we're looking at the high school, that whole building makes me a little bit nervous because it's sitting on top of a hill that continues to slide. So, but it's also the only school that we have that could make it out of Peace River in the case of a flood. So there's several questions and logistics that would have to be looked at. TA Norris and Glen Mary are right together and land is not in abundance for either side, so they share. So there's a lot of questions.
It's going to be a good value scoping session.
Okay. So we wouldn't be, to put them number 1 wouldn't be a.
No, sounds like that.
And I have wondered about French immersion because we've got 2 streams of French immersion, all looking for teachers, all underutilized in classrooms that really, you know, the French immersion people in the value scoping, maybe that would be another thing. And in the value scoping, who's there? Is Holy Family, would they be there or just Peace 10? Just the public?
Just us in this scenario, yeah. Yeah, Fairview was different because there was.
Yeah.
Moving birds, but when in Peace River, because they have their own K-12, maybe.
How many students do we have in Peace River in all 3 schools? Approximately.
Did you ever all three schools? Let's see. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine, you're fine.
And, piece of line. 272. And that's 5. And little bit of 800. Did you?
That was a good guess.
She was over here doing mental math.
Sorry, I didn't know.
I was under my breath.
Yeah, just over 800, 15, 820. And just Madam Chair, one last thing, the programming side of it, while it's certainly a consideration of the value scoping, the value scoping process looks more at the nuts and bolts of the engineering side of it and physical structures. But to the trustees' comments, yes, there's only really enough students who choose to do French immersion programming to have one stream and one school offering it. And in Peace River, we have 2 competing school divisions competing for the same number of teachers. So you end up with small class sizes sometimes. And if both schools were to come together, you just have a really good, robust, awesome, energetic classroom that would be more viable. And there have been conversations between the 2 school boards around, can we set something up where French immersion K-3 is offered in one school, just to keep it simple, and then 4 to 6 in another school, or K-6 in one system, then the tag it, 7 to 12 in the other system. Of course, that's going to be hard to decide because both schools would want to extract the student in their school and hope that they stay there afterwards. So, but it's a really tough circumstance, and we've been very fortunate to get teachers over the last couple of years with some bumps, because I was thinking we're just not going to get them when Calgary and Edmonton are struggling to get French immersion teachers. I thought we're going to be just not able to pull that off, but we've been able to overall. But it's a program that's really, really challenging on so many fronts.
We do get additional funding for it, just since we're talking about French immersion. We get $31,271.49 a year to help us with the French immersion.
Is that the federal?
No.
And we don't offer high school, right? Like we offer English and social at the high school level.
Yeah.
So there's no longer at grade 10 to 12 science and
No.
math for French immersion kids.
That's right.
And it's cycled. So the kids do all their grade 11 courses in the first semester, and then they do the 12s in the second semester. So they'll do English 1 year or 1 semester of social work. So our numbers are not good.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, maybe at another point in time, at some of the points during the year, we can do a deeper dive on the French immersion programming, because whenever you do dual language programming, if you don't have relatively equal numbers on both sides of that, it creates significant human resources inefficiencies. You end up with a K-6 school, for example, perhaps needing an extra 4 or 5 teachers you wouldn't otherwise need if it was all French immersion or all English, or all French or all English. And so it's a very big cost and challenge to the organization. But again, when you're competing with another school jurisdiction, if you give up that, then what happens is that the students that you have would shift to that other system. So it's a complex issue for sure. We can talk about it more later.
So I guess, are we comfortable with you move Fairview to 3 and bump the other 2 up?
Well, I see on here, we had this down as a conversation, but I feel very comfortable making a motion if everybody else in the room is comfortable with doing it at this time.
Feel like February, is there some wording you want to tweak?
No, right now, just intent. We don't need a motion yet. I just need to know where to start, so I can make the adjustments to the plan to bring to the board for approval.
And that way it can be on the agenda and everyone can fit
Yes.
thoroughly to make
Yes.
sure we want to tweak any. I think,
Yeah, just
in case people haven't had a chance.
I just don't want to spend a whole lot of time in one meeting and then come kind of,
Yeah.
everybody's where we are, and then bring it back to another meeting and spend the same amount of time on it. That's all. So I think that what our intent is, or what my intent would be, if it was gonna be on the part of a motion, would be to move Peace River to number one. Number two would be to apply for funding for Worthing value scoping, and number three would be carry on the value scoping. When, or, yeah.
And then
So value scoping in Fairview instead changing from the K-12 collegiate school for Fairview to value scoping.
Well, I think the
Yes.
value scoping will drive out what's supposed to happen in Fairview.
So,
Unless we run a risk of leaving that K-12 in our
like,
capital plan, and somebody says, no, it's never happened in the history of Alberta, but if somebody said, well, let's build that school without value scoping because it fits in with what the town wants to do and it fits in with Holy Family.
because we still have the paragraph that just rule, the next step would be the value scope.
Yeah.
so either way, I mean, so the question was whether or not.
I think my only reservation there is I think leaving it the same because it identifies the value scoping as really our next step. Peace River School Division hasn't done any further work, so why would we change that at this point when we're relying on the value scoping to take us to the next step? So I think that if we leave Fairview the way it is, but move it to number 3. That's just my thought.
The only thing I personally was thinking we would maybe put a preamble about where Fairview's at, and this is why we're moving it to number. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, we're changing our capital plan every 6 months, right? So maybe the preamble about what's happening with the collegiate portion of that would hurt, right?
Yeah, I think that's.
It's uncertain right now whether we're gonna have a collegiate partner in town or not.
Yeah.
And the second part of that is we don't know what the population, what that's going to do to the population of Fairview. So there's just more questions than answers.
Yeah, the population can't be predicted at this point.
Madam Chair, I think it's a really good idea to do a preamble because as the trustee mentioned, you know, if you're doing, if somebody 2 years from now is looking at Peace River School Division and looking at the capital plan document and it sees that every 6 months it looks like it changed its priorities, somebody could argue, well, gee, it really didn't have a good set of priorities in the first instance, whereas to contextualize this change is really important. A good, you know, artifact documentation of that. So we could perhaps, you know, if it's what the wishes of the board is to do, we could come back to the February meeting with some, you know, we could have some language that could be considered. To the trustees' point, it wouldn't necessarily take a whole lot more time, given a fair amount of time spent on it already. Any objections to this, and then you could move to kind of motion forward, and then positions us really well to get that capital plan up and to that Alberta education well ahead of the timeline. Anybody?
Sounds wonderful. Okay, we will move to. We will move to updated enrollment projections.
So just very briefly, and then I'll ask Rhonda to speak to this, Madam Chair. So as you recall, we did talk about enrollment numbers in December, and we highlighted the fact that we continue to see some challenges with enrollment in some of our schools, and that of course is impacting space utilization in schools and therefore funding. We have a school that's, you know, as they shift down, especially our small rural schools, they shift in the category of funding, and that can be $150,000 or $200,000 in the difference here. So we have an update on numbers that suggests that we're now back to the pattern that existed there for a number of years, whereby we were into a 1.5 to 2% enrollment decline for a period of time. And then over the last 4 or 5 years, it seems it's sort of stabilized. We dropped down a bit and then popped back up a bit. So we're now at about what for our projected numbers are less than 2,900 for this year. I'll ask Rhonda to share further details on that. One of the schools that will be highlighted, which was highlighted in December, is Hines Creek. And we did had one of our staff members do a detailed piece of work to track students over time from grade 9. And at what point did they leave Hines Creek Composite School? It's a very interesting document that shows that we have a lot of students who, at the end of the grade 9 year, who decide to move elsewhere for their education, oftentimes still with us. And then some, might stay in Hines Creek for 1 year, then leave in grade 11 and 12. And then there's a list of students who actually, a list of probably 12 or 14 or 15 students across grade levels who have Hines Creek addresses, but have never actually enrolled in Hines Creek School. So the long and short of it is that if it's similar to the Napa story, if everybody that was eligible to attend Hines Creek School attended and stayed there for the duration, the numbers would be such that they wouldn't be falling into those problematic funding thresholds that create challenges for us to sustain the school. Rhonda, you want to speak to that in a little more detail, or broaden it out, not only Hines Creek, but just across the board with the data?
Sure. So we're estimating that we're probably going to have at least 57.5 to 60 less students next year. Our kindergarten grade level, which are only funded at 0.5, are going down. They're a smaller number. And our high schools are now the largest number of students. That's a catastrophic trend to continue it, because every year we're seeing more students finishing with us than coming back. So when we do our enrollment projections, we're really sticking with what we know. What do we have right now, moving them up a grade, and talking to daycares in the community to see what does kindergarten look like. It's always a guess with kindergarten, but we've been pretty accurate for the last couple of years on how many little ones we're getting in the fall. So it's a little bit concerning. Looking at the rural small schools, some really interesting trends are continuing. Lloyd Garrison's projections, there was really high expectations this year. That did not happen. And their projections going forward are lower and lower, so they're at risk of moving down a level in the rural small school framework if the rural small school framework stays for next year, because we don't know that yet. With the new funding manual coming, I don't know if there will continue to be rural small school funding or what that will look like. Hines Creek's numbers, there's colony school students included in Hines Creek because there isn't an official colony school, but we do have colony school kids that are not in the school all the time. So really, projections for next year, Hines Creek and Red Earth Creek are the exact same enrollment. That's pretty shocking. And then Menno Simons and Worsley are almost identical. There's less than 4 students when we look at FTE, less than 4 students difference between Worsley and Menno Simons. So they're almost identical schools. And then we have Nampa, and that's looking 39 students, but 5 of those are kindergarten. So the FTE there is getting to be right at that critical 35 FTE, which would bump them out of the rural small school funding and just giving them the weight or the lumped in with all the other students, and a $26,791 grant, the same as we get for our 108 schools. So
that would be a loss of $250,000 or $260,000 or something.
Probably, yeah,
From 35 to
at least that much, yeah.
It's pretty substantial.
So,
And so for the new trustees, Madam Chair, last year we made a staffing adjustment in Hines Creek. We reduced the staff by 2 full teaching units, which was very significant. But That was the result of earlier efforts in earlier years whereby the school really needed to have an adjustment in staff, let's say, but we, instead of saying we'll reduce by 2, we'll reduce by 1. We spread it over a couple of years to allow for adjustment. That's okay if the enrollment stays the same, but if the enrollment continues to drop, you're never making gains. And then, so last year, with our budget realities and the fact that we no longer had surplus budgets, we made the decision to reduce two teaching staff and force the hand of the school a little bit to make sure they were using the virtual education program that was actually set up for those schools to offer high school programming virtually, and they were still offering high school programming internally because they could, because they had more staff than the numbers of students suggested they should have. So that created quite a challenging circumstance. Trustee Giesel did attend one of the public meetings there where parents were not very happy. Coming out of that, though, was a recognition that their virtual education suite was far less than desirable. So they've done some work and they've actually transformed the library where meetings have occurred into a really excellent virtual education suite. And things have gone relatively well this year, but of course, with enrollments continuing to drop, it just adds further challenges to the division with regard to how we're going to make all this work in future years. And just for the record as well, oftentimes small rural schools, communities will argue that, well, all the resources are in the bigger communities. The reality is that small rural schools need to rely on resources that would have been otherwise destined for the bigger schools in order for them to actually stay open, because there's just not enough funding provincially to make ends meet. So what you do is you shift teaching resources and other resources away from our larger schools so that small schools can have a somewhat reasonable opportunity to stay functional. And that runs counter to what people's thinking is. And so to put one other face on that, if our larger schools had to have the student to teacher or student to adult or student to employee ratio that our small schools have, there wouldn't be enough space in our larger schools to accommodate the extra staff that you get. So we actually shift resources to small schools as part of our efforts to manage the system from an equity perspective. Anything else on that?
It's when you look at our 6 small schools, and there's a couple that are holding their own and actually have gained, like Ritter Creek and I think Worsley. But when you look at them all, the ones that are losing enrollment, they're losing them for different reasons. And you talked about Hinds Creek. Some of the students we're losing there are going to one of our other schools. Napa, they're going to a bigger community, some in our schools, a lot in another school division. When you're looking at Cleardale at Meadow Siding School, they're opting for different education that's not one of our schools. So you almost have to look at them all separately and figure out what's going on here. And I think that the 3 schools in the northwest corner of the division are all small schools. And the funding is coming from someplace else to keep the doors open.
Do we have any indication of what the funding is going to change to, or do you think it's changing?
I think it's changing, and I think it's going to going back to having more grants that are like restrictive, and we have to report differently on the different grants that we get. But that's just my guess. I've heard nothing.
And we still don't know what we're getting.
I would say that the budget will be announced, and then probably about a couple of weeks to a month after the budget that we'll get in funding.
And Madam Chair, I think the only thing that I can say with significant certainty is that whatever gets announced is not going to change the financial challenges for the division in operating students. It might be somewhat helpful, but it's not going to be like game changer stuff.
I think it's a topic we're going to probably talk about later
Yeah.
for ASBA as well,
Mhm.
with the rural funding. And then I'm guessing for our joint municipalities. I wish we could know it before, so we could really, but I guess we could educate on what it is currently. Um. Anyone have any questions?
The only other comment I'll make, Madam Chair, is that depending on what the funding regime is, the new regime, once you have that information, then you'll be in a more informed position. But let's say that my statement is going true, which I think is probably the sentiment around the room anyway, that's not likely to be game changer, so that we don't have worries about our small 5 or 6 schools that are in that category of not generating the funding needed to operate them. Then the board will probably be in a position in the not too distant future of having to make some significant decisions around viability of schools. Not unlike, what we've recently done twice already over the last 3 or 4 years. It's a real sad reality, but that's probably where the board is likely to be needing to move. And of course, once we get new numbers and we have new budget information, we'll make sure that we inform you so that you're in that position to decide if you trigger policy 15, say moving into next year, or if you just want to wait and see if things shake down. But we will be having those kind of conversations. Sure.
Well, thank you. We'll move to 5.3, administrative procedure review.
Madam Chair, just very briefly on that. So you'll note in an earlier section, there's an attachment to the superintendent's report that didn't get pulled, but just to make reference to it, you'll see, well, it's 2.6.1 was pulled, but 2.6.1.1 shows a list of administrative procedures that have been either newly created or updated. So that's just simply a signal to say that we have begun our work. I've begun a significant amount of work to do an overall of all of our administrative procedures. So what this item is alerting the board to is indeed that we're meeting tomorrow afternoon. Is it? Yes, tomorrow afternoon. The team was sitting down and we're going to flesh out an approach, a strategy, a process that whereby we will then farm out to various departments within the organization administrative procedures to review. So part of that approach will be looking at making sure we have consistency in formatting, because if you were to go to our 100s through to 500 sections of our administrative procedures documents now, you won't necessarily see it entirely formatted in the same kind of way. So we're going to put heads together tomorrow afternoon and do a piece of work around launching forward with an approach that will see us do a significant overhaul of our administrative procedures in the context of any new legislation, but also from the point of view of making sure we have typing errors, removed, and there's grammatical correctness and so on. And so the idea is that we farm out the various administrative procedures work to the people, say student transportation, we take the lead in looking at theirs, and school operations and learning services and so on, and business services, but with a template that we all follow. And we want to make sure that that's tracked in a proper kind of way. So Chris will be a point person on all of that. And we will do that work. Hopefully we have an updated set of administrative procedures moving into the next school year. That would be the ideal, but if not, a very substantial data put in that work. We did do a piece of work around that when we merged together the technology services and the former school services departments into one. Shane took the lead and did some updating of administrative procedures, and that resulted in some APs being, archived, no longer used, and updated administrative procedures. So that's the kind of work we will be doing, and this is simply to share that with you. And of course, what we will do moving forward, if we have a batch of administrative procedures updated, we may just include them in the board documentation just for information purposes only, so that you can get a sense and flavor of the work that, of the progress that we're making. And so that's what that is.
Anyone have any questions?
It's, I looked at a couple of the admin procedures just under your report, unless it's highlighted in red, but all the changes were, if you don't know what it was there before, you don't know what's there now, so.
So once we get them updated, we will share with you. Well, we could do two things. If there was a particular an administrative procedure or some administrative procedures that the board wanted to have a good look at because of high interest, we could show you, here's what it was before, here's the marked up version, and here's the new version. So you can have the three sets so you can track the adjustments that you made.
Just being open with you and honest, I won't look at them, so. No, I'm serious. I trust you just doing what's right.
Yeah. Good to know.
They're yours, so they're not ours.
Good to know.
Got enough work.
Yeah, and so what we could do, Madam Chair, to that point, then, what I would like to be able to do is any administrative procedures resulting from, say, ministerial orders, if we ever have any of those. We had a few of them this past year.
Yes.
And in recognition of the fact that the board, I thought, made a very smart and strategic move to amend one of its policies to say it will hold its superintendent to account to ensure that operationally we are in compliance with any ministerial orders and all legislation. Then we could bring those forward and say, hey, and here's the proof that we've done that piece, and that at least if somebody were to ask trustees, did you ever get your policy on literary materials done? You can say, oh yeah, we did. We have an administrative procedure on that.
And really, you're already good at telling us if maybe you change something that we're gonna hear.
Yeah.
Like, it's just giving us that.
Okay, and that's all I wanted. The intention of that item was, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the 2026-2027 sounds. Draft school calendar.
Yeah, and
Too far in the future.
so, Madam Chair, we did meet before Christmas. I shared this in our December meeting, and we said that the end of January is the feedback deadline for feedback. As of today, we have 25 pieces of feedback, and almost all of it is positive. There's one comment there from one individual saying that maybe it looks like a lot of days kids are out of school. But in actual fact, the days that kids are in school meet the requirements, so it's no different than the other years. We had one comment around maybe having January 4th as a PD day, first day back versus January 29th, to allow teachers to come back and do some preparation so that students would be better received the following day. But other than that, the feedback is, some of it was written, a lot of it was Facebook likes, that kind of piece. So we took it all. Nothing in the feedback that would suggest adjusting the calendar. So once the deadline for submission comes, what we do is I'll ask Chris to correct anything I say that I misspeak on here, but we will share with our partners that we can even share the feedback. Here's the feedback we received, or the feedback we received. Yeah, it's here. It's a summary of it. We don't feel that there's anything here that warrants a shift. And if the superintendents of the other school jurisdictions agree, then the calendar that we folded becomes the calendar that we now will make official. In which case, we would actually come back to the February board meeting and present the calendar for your consideration to make it official versus the typical March period. We always reserve another meeting for February in the event that the feedback here is like, holy smokes, we've got a lot of feedback. A lot of people aren't happy about it. No real clarity on what the solution should be. Then we come together as a committee again and take one more look at the feedback and tweak it as much as we can. And then that becomes the one that will go to the board in March. So I think this one is in good hands from the point of view of it being seen as a reasonable calendar. And the other calendar that we have out is the one from Mount Simon's Community School, as you all know, the piece we've done there. Deputy Superintendent Plock and Assistant Superintendent Gascoigne have looked at that calendar, and there's been conversation with the principal. I think yesterday we also shared it with the office manager out there, and in the days ahead, we will solidify the feedback, and I'll ask Alita if there's any initial feedback. Right now, nothing jumps off the page. So we will, assuming that calendar also is accepted, next year, early in the year, the principal of the school, or at some point in the year, once the PAT exam schedule is released, there will need to be a conversation with Alberta education officials to change the schedule for the majority of the PATs because of the fact that the school is over for K-9 students well before the PAT exams are completed.
We just did that for this year.
Yes.
So this is about the time of year that.
Yes. So, yeah, so it does require, for the minimum one, it does require a fairly significant amount of work. So you got to go back to Alberta Education and seek permission to do the PAT exam much earlier. It also actually likely disadvantages students because it requires teachers to actually finish their courses earlier by about 2 weeks, and students therefore, being prepared to write the exams early. And that's all we can do on that.
And there are no paper copies for any changed exams.
Yes, that's actually significant because that came out in last year. Because you write at an alternate date, the only option is to have the exams electronically. You can't get the paper copies or read through them at notes and so on. So that's nice. So this is an information piece for now. If things continue to unfold the way they have over the last month and a bit with regard to feedback, we anticipate coming back to the February board meeting with a suggested recommended calendar for next year. The only other piece I'll mention again for the record here is we did float the notion that perhaps moving forward, it might be a real good idea to look at approving a three-year calendar. And then every year you meet, you're just adding 1 year so that going forward, the board always has 3 years worth of calendars. It would probably be helpful for planning, future planning and so on. And other than the difficulty in getting 3 years done in the first year, once you do that, if we were to do that next year, every year after that, it's no different. You're just adding the next year out, 3 years out. That received positive support from the committee, the interdivisional committee. And I think last time this was raised at the board table, there didn't seem to be any objections to that. So when we approve this calendar, when we present the calendar to you in February, like zero in on that again. If the board feels that's a good thing, I think I'm going to orchestrate doing exactly that next fall.
Good. Any questions? Okay,
Yeah, well, it's
okay. We want to recess till 11:15. We're actually going to move down to policy to 6.2, and we'll do 5.5.1 and 5.1.1 after we go in camera. So, okay, let's go down to 6.2.1 policy 8, and this is board committees. And we're presenting this for first reading. David, do you want to, as the policy committee guru, do you want to go over it quickly, or?
Well, there just really, as you can see, there wasn't a whole lot of changes in this particular policy number 8. Just a couple of changes that the policy committee felt worded it better. And you've all studied this since Monday. I know you spent a lot of time on it Monday night and Tuesday probably. So.
Yeah, there weren't too many changes. Just adding those two standing committees, I think was the biggest one.
I just,
We didn't
a
really
little
like,
language in the preamble. there.
yeah. We didn't really feel like the superintendent has to make an agenda or prepare an agenda for all of these meetings. Normally they're, that's not something that's required, but we put as needed that way in case that's something we do need to do. I guess from your perspective, Jeff, do you see any issues?
No.
with-
It's good.
There's one thing I kind of jumped out to me just because I've been reading, I haven't finished the book yet that we got from Jeff, the imperfect board member. There was just a part in there that said something. It's never the role of a committee to bring a recommendation. Kind of jumped out to me when I saw, well, that's exactly like the wording is also recommendation in here. That's kind of laid out the difference between a recommendation and options. Just kind of, I guess, that was just something new to me and it just kind of jumped out to me and I just noticed it when I read the policy, this policy here.
A committee would not bring. a
It said
recommendation?
something, a recommendation is a decision of disguise. You should bring the options. Option
yeah.
one, option two, pros and cons, whatever, and then let the board decide which one is the,
Yeah.
I just found it a little bit interesting.
Yep, that's a good pickup, because that's exactly what it says in that book, that ideally, you'd bring options, and there are the pros and cons of this option, and there are the three options that are up for consideration, and then it's a much more open-ended piece versus, I think the book says the recommendation, it's almost interpreted as the committee has already made its decision.
Yeah, I think that's what.
It's just-
Interesting, because Town of Peace River, they would give you options, but then they would give their recommendation. We recommend option one or whatever. And maybe they shouldn't have done that. Maybe it should have just been open.
Well, Madam Chair, it's quite common for recommendations to come forward, but if you're following true to what, the suggestion in that book, it would be options versus recommendation.
I'm fine with this. It's just something I kind of never thought of.
No, it's true.
That's a really good point.
I haven't read the book yet. Keep reading.
Or,
It keeps going places with me.
but yeah, I think this is good.
We can always change them to options.
And I think the committees normally do that too, right? They do. We thought with this, we looked at this, and these are the options. I think normally that happens.
Which said, sorry, you're looking at,
Well, in the first paragraph, it says recommendations a lot. And preparing recommendations to the board.
And it does say committees can expect the board to carefully examine and question the recommendations. So it does say that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the trustees group is saying is that if you shifted that to preparing options, then it would leave it more open, and it would, depending on the composition of a board, some boards would feel better about that versus, okay, now they're just having to rubber stamp a decision that the committee made. Whereas the committee's work is to explore all the possible options, to bring them forward and say, hey, here are the three options that we've identified, here are the pros and cons. Good conversation unfolds, and then the board decides the best option. Whereas the recommendation is, you're sort of going down a certain road anyway. I think the way this is worded, Madam Chair, is very consistent with what you see in a lot of policies. However, to Trustee Leesbrook's comment, if you did want to shift it to options, it doesn't change the spirit of this policy at all. And it just keeps it more open for everybody to have an equal voice in the conversation that you have. Either way, it can work.
Do we like it?
I actually see the point of providing options and not, because a recommendation is then, it puts the board in the position of having to go against their committee's recommendation, which can be really uncomfortable, as opposed to options, but you can list many more positive, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
for one option.
Well,
Then,
yeah.
like, those are the findings of the committee, right?
And especially if the board probably would say to the committee, Well, which one do you recommend?
Or what do you,
Which one did you guys think was the best? But yeah, I do like options. Yeah. That'll be good. It's less, less solid.
I think
adversarial?
the intent is there because it says the committee's function is advisory to the board. The adoption of committee recommendations by the board is not automatic. So the spirit is there, I think.
So, trustee Giesbert, if that was to read conducting comprehensive discussions of and preparing options for the board's considerations on matters, that would make more sense, right? Is Chris able to make those changes? Or can we make a motion to take this to first reading with those recommended changes? I like that. That's a pretty good catch.
But then do we have to change the adoption of committee recommendations by the board? It's not on.
What, that would be,
That's the third paragraph.
we could just strike that sentence.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Which one is
My
it?
only overthinking of it, which I like to do, is when you're saying options. So then as a policy committee, do we have to bring you options to revise? Do you have to bring options?
I think you.
I guess
Well,
it depends.
you'll need a new policy.
Would this be considered an option, right? Because
I
it's
guess.
highlighted in red. It's, so you can choose
I guess
to
what
scratch
I
it
think an
or
option
accept
there
it.
should be.
I know, but I think the way it's presented here does give you the
Okay.
option still to
But-
accept
Okay, that's all
or
I needed.
decline the changes. I
Obviously,
think you're
because
thinking too deep.
That never happens. Okay, so we would, preparing options in that
for the board's
first sentence,
consideration on
and then
matters.
strike the adoption of committee recommendations by the board is not automatic.
Where's that?
That's like the third sentence.
So you're saying strike that whole sentence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not recommendations anymore.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure it's clear before we.
And then, but then we have to change the next sentence.
Yeah.
Because it has recommendations.
Question there, options.
Options instead of
Yeah,
recommendations.
that's right.
But its options are well-founded.
An option.
Sorry, Chris.
And the last sentence?
The committee ensures that its options are well-founded and thought.
And further down, 5.1.
Oh, right.
I'm gonna say, I bet there's more.
And 4.1.6 says recommendation.
To our clear positions and options are presented.
Let's go in order,
4.1.6.
4.1.6.
We could just change that to
5.1.
say ensure clear options.
Yeah,
Are
recommendations
presented.
could always mostly be just changed to options, yeah.
Yeah, rather than positions and options, clear options, yeah. 4.1.6, clear, ensure clear options are presented to the board. And Madam Chair, what that really, that's, it is a really good pickup, because what that does then is that it really highlights the role of committees is to go into the grunt work, to come up, explore all the possible viable options and to bring them forward. And that's the work of the committee, is a small group decide to get together to inform the full board in the matter that you're working with and with the various options.
Is this ever done in capital planning, like committees? Do we have a capital planning committee? Is that?
We've never done
Oh.
Should we have one? It's a big.
I just wondered if that was.
Go ahead, Ron.
I haven't heard of it.
The capital plan is a little bit different because sometimes you can have items on the capital plan for 10 years that never get approved, but they don't change because they're still the focus of the board. So a capital planning committee might never have work until something gets approved and falls off the capital plan, and then it's what do we put on there next, right? So it's a little bit different because just because we have it on the capital plan doesn't mean we're gonna get anything approved.
I also feel the
Just my
capital
thoughts.
plan is very, you need the input, say like very unique. So if these two weren't on the capital plan committee, the insight we wouldn't have about Fairview
Right.
or,
So it's more a whole board thing, not a.
I feel it personally, but.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful.
Can I move
Okay,
this
Chris,
for,
sorry.
for reading?
Yeah, do you want me to go through all the changes? I just changed most of the recommendations to options at the top of that sentence.
Yeah,
On it.
sounds good. We trust you. I think we would just do it for first reading and then.
Yeah, And then we'll look at
Look at
it
it,
for second reading next
take
week.
it to the next one. Yeah, I think that way we know it's all.
So has a motion been made,
Thank you.
Yep,
Janet makes that motion. So the motion would be passed for first reading as amended. Any further?
Sorry if I'm.
No,
that's a good one.
Better now than after it's done. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor? We are 6. Okay, and now we will go over 6.2.2, which is policy 9, board representatives. David, you want to do this again?
Sure. Just right at the very beginning of this one, you'll see highlighted in red, the community-based organizations will be represented by the local trustee whenever feasible, so that when we were going through this, we didn't have to say local trustee 6 or local trustee 7 or local trustee 4. It's assumed in there, right? And we did that, I think, because right now I'm the representative on the Ag Society Joint Use Committee up in Cleardale because there's a conflict of interest with the board 7 trustee, and that could happen all over the place. This just cleans it up. Community-based organizations will be represented by the local trustee whenever feasible. If it's not feasible, we won't do anything. And then the rest of the changes are related to that. And then we added committees that weren't there before in the end.
And we added some with, to add one alternate, just because why not have an alternate? Especially the ones that are kind of, would be a couple of words. Trying to just make them all the same. That's what we were trying to get, is one would have one trustee, but no alternate, and the next one would have it, so.
So the Heinz Creek Recreation Committee is no longer a thing. Struck out.
That's what I was, yes.
Yeah, that's,
And what was the 9? We have recreation committee, any question for Worsley? This was before Christmas, guys, so
yeah.
I don't quite remember what that was. So there's the Worsley District Agricultural Society, and then is there a record, or do we have to make one?
I
don't know.
I don't think so. The problem, it's not that it's a problem, but the Ag Society, the joint use with the Ag Society in Worsley, we never get an invite to those meetings. So in the terms of reference, it says that Peace River School Division trustee is supposed to be invited, but we never know who the committee is comprised of, who the Ag Society is, and I don't think, Edith, you've ever gotten anything. So an agreement still does exist. I don't think that we've ever, stepped up and said, when are the meetings? Because I don't know if we know who to contact.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't ask for a joint use meeting and bring the agreement and just find out, is this how we're operating, or are they just going?
Was this
Over there.
the one that a previous trustee just never got invited
Yes.
to and it helped?
I just think that if we do have a joint use, they're using our facilities for something. It'd be nice to say, are you following these guidelines?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot
No.
that happens in the school from the Ag Society. Like, there's regular rentals consistently in Worsley School, but they all follow our rental, our AP. So, I don't know that the Ag Society is doing a lot in the school, so maybe that's why there isn't meetings.
Maybe.
Going back to the topic, that's just the one question I had, like, with the, community-based organizations will be represented by the local trustee. So I know what that means. I guess my first question, just seeing that, I almost felt like, oh, does that mean I need to be on the lookout for any community-based organizations and I should go and represent the school board there?
Just the ones that are listed.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Yeah.
so it just means the ones that, yeah.
And that kind of in the first paragraph, the board may appoint trustees to represent the board on its turn. So yeah, these are only by board. We still go through the whole process of appointing people and just going through to make sure everyone knows what boards are on and what they're not on.
As a part of this trustees group, we added the public school board council, and rural caucus committee because they weren't here before. So we had a list of the things that we were asking trustees to represent the board on when we went through our organizational meeting, but they weren't captured in policy 9. So now we've captured all of those in policy 9.
I think.
Right? Well,
For now.
until we make another one.
Jeff and Rhonda, do you guys see any issues? And so say the ones we added, like an alternate to. So by the time this gets approved, it will probably be February or
Yeah,
March.
there might be one more. I'm just not seeing it here. The, I don't even know what the whole title is, but it's the joint use and planning agreement for the town of Peace River with Holy Family, Peace River School Division, and the Frank.
And will there be a Manning? as well?
There will be a remaining one.
But we can't add those in.
I think we wait until they're, the Peace River one is in play and we've approved the joint use agreement. So I think that one should be added. We're starting, John and I are meeting tomorrow to talk about the management joint use agreement. So it will start, but the agreement isn't done yet. So
In theory, would it be easier to table this? Because this isn't really changing anything that we're currently doing.
as long as
We're
it's done
just kind of just
before
putting what we're
June.
currently doing in
Yeah.
practice, right?
Yeah.
Or like in policy.
Yeah, so, once we get to the next organizational meeting, it should be finalized. Does that make sense?
So
Because
would
there
it be
will be a
easier
couple,
to table it and not do the 3 readings until we have those 2 other ones?
it might, because then we probably want to add Rudders Creek too. Because there will be a joint use agreement with the village of Rudders Creek with the new school. And if we start that process earlier, then that could be in place during construction.
Yeah, I just don't want to add one and approve it, 3
Yeah.
readings, and
No,
then
yeah,
2 months later, bring it back to add another one. When we're not really.
Yeah, I think that, I think this could be approved. And the next organizational meeting, if there's one to add to it, then the policy committee, wherever they are over the next year, just adds it in there. It's pretty simple to do, right? This is one of the easiest policies we've ever tackled. And adding, now that the structure is built, adding a new group for pretty straightforward. I mean, there's two options. One is we just leave it and come back to it after our next organizational meeting.
Well, we do it before because we're gonna have those for that organization meeting, right? Yeah. What do you want to do? Want to table it or do you want to approve it as is and then bring it back in a month or two?
I guess what I'm saying is we wouldn't have to bring it back in a month or two. We could bring it back in 2 years from now. Because this one sat like this for years and we just decided to add to it.
I guess, but I guess since we're working on it, why not?
Yeah, and I'm good with just leaving it as it is right now.
Like if everyone's okay with like kind of how we did it. So would we just table it till April? That would give us time to approve it for May or for our organizational meeting. And we can try and have this meeting.
All the policy committee needs is the name of the organization or the name of the committee. And we get added in anyway.
Yeah.
I move that we, accept this. Policy as is. With the, amendment. Is that what those are? Amendment? In red?
This is as presented.
Yeah.
It would be, yeah.
And the policy committee then could do it real quick.
Can we pass it for first reading and bring it to second with adding them? You want me to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion to approve this for first reading? Okay, all in favor? We are 6. Okay, let's do it 20 minutes. Okay, let's go down to 6.3, standing committee items. 6.3.1 ASBA.
Oh,
David, do you want to give a zone 1 update? We had a zone 1 meeting yesterday.
yeah,
David, Jeff, and I attended.
Yeah. That's right. I didn't get a lot, to be honest with you. When the folks are giving the reports, I can't write fast enough and think fast enough to get anything out of it. But Joan Dallas did say, she's on the advocacy committee, and Joan Dallas is the board chair from Public and who is the director from Zone 1 on the ASBA provincial board. So the board met with the minister, and there's some discussion around now. Some of the topics that are discussed with the minister and how they're confidential. So the ASBA Zone 1 may be going to in-camera sessions to discuss some of this stuff. It's kind of what I got out of the whole thing. President Shalley is sharing now with regular emails instead of just a presentation monthly. They're still advocating for class size and complexity. They have a committee member from the ASBA, which is currently not happening. The board has discussed recruitment and retention with the minister, and he suggested we talk to the Minister of Advanced Education. I didn't quite catch that whole thing because I was still writing the last one down. The vice president, chair, Devona, was talking about they're going to be doing a presentation at the ARES conference March 1 to 3 in Edmonton, and their presentation is going to go from 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 3rd until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's the rural ed symposium.
What's that, sorry?
Sorry, I was just telling them that's the rural ed symposium we were talking about.
Yeah. And Dr. Boo talked about. He talked again about the presentation on, that the ASB is doing at the Alberta Rural Education Symposium again. And they talked about an education funding review on December the 17th. And Canada, Alberta, the school food program, that there's $46 million. And so we're gonna sit down, I guess, and talk about that again eventually and federally.
Can I interject about that school food program, because it's not anywhere else? There is 17 million for the 24-25 school year that has to be used or started by April 1st.
That'd be
this year.
25, 26.
Nope. So the 24-25, and then the 25-26, again, April 1st. So 17 million, I think we've already lost for the first year. We lost it. So when she says 46, I don't think it is anymore. And so 17 million for this year, we lose as of April 1st if it's not. And this is what I know, is that the minister's office got a hold of some research people to do some research for sort of like baseline, what's going on right now. And the grant goes out for this research. It hasn't even been, they haven't even chosen from the RFP who is going to do the research. And I'm like, I just can't see that happening by April 1st. Anyway, I don't know if we're gonna get that money.
Yeah, and I don't know, did either of you catch what she was talking about on that? Was there something upcoming or?
Could it be the research? I don't know.
No, we do know that there's been, in addition to the provincial funding, there's a federal government amount that's also being injected into the grants to schools, right? So there's a school divisions probably ended up getting a little better than double the money that they had.
Did you get it then?
I don't. I'm figuring.
No.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, that's right. So no, that's the detail on that is unfolding, but yeah, so I guess to your point though, there's timelines are obviously going to be very important here, so yeah.
It sounded like the ASB because I've got written down here Canada/Alberta school programs, like it's like the province and the federal government were going to get together on that.
They've been working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's still this spotlight.
The other takeout of this was that I talked briefly to Lacey and Jeff and Rhonda during our putting up the agenda for today's meeting. There's a committee on the ASBA Zone 1 that's been there for a couple of years called the Small Rural Schools Funding Committee. And last summer, we had Dan Williams join us in the boardroom here. And one of the things that we talked about was small school funding. And we hit him from 3 or 4 different angles with 2 or 3 different trustees on this. And finally, he said, I get what you're saying, but you have to understand, when I talk to my colleagues in Edmonton, Red Deer, and Calgary, they don't care. I can't get there. So you guys have to build a coalition of a whole bunch of school groups, school divisions, and then it'd be weightier or more weighty when I bring it forward, right? So now you've got a whole bunch of rural schools doing this. And so then Lacey and myself and former board chair Owens went to the next Zone 1 meeting, and I presented that to the group there because we thought we shouldn't be moving on our own out there. We're a part of ASBA, and we should be moving with ASBA. And the logical place to do this would be at Zone 1. For some reason, it was misinterpreted of where we wanted to go. And that was my fault and how I presented it, I think, and the committee never really got it. But throughout the process over the last 6 or 8 months, we have been talking about it, and the group felt that after the elections and after the first meeting when they're doing their organizational stuff, that it would be likely a good time for somebody like myself to be a part of that committee, because I was fairly passionate in explaining, you know, where we were going and some of the things we were suffering with. So when they put forward members for the committee this year, Wally was not, Wally Hurd, who was on the committee last year from Northlands, never got reelected. Michelle, who went on to be the chair of Zone 1, wanted to step down, so there was just Karen left. And so then there was the Karen, and then I put my name forward, and Marie at the same time, Trustee Dick put her name forward. And then Joan Nellis, who was the director for Zone 1, put her name forward as just an advisor to the group to kind of sit and listen. So there's a 4 of us. But I think as I discussed it, and I'll rely on the trustees that were here when Dan was in the room when we were talking about it. I think we were talking about small school funding, which is the 150 students, less than 150 students. And that's what this group is called, Small Rural Schools Funding Committee. But when we talked about that in Peace River last summer, they weren't there. They didn't even, they just called the group Small Rural Schools Funding, not realizing that there's actually a funding group in less than 150, right? So my thoughts right now with this, with my board is moving forward. We have a meeting on the evening of February the 18th. And I've always felt really silly that all of the members of Zone 1, all of the divisions are a part of this small rural schools funding group. Like they're going to be a part of our coalition, and that includes Grand Prairie Public School Division. It doesn't have a small school anywhere. So I'm a little bit confused when I get with my group of people on the 18th, like, how do we do this? Like Grand Yellowhead, if you read the letter on their small rural schools, that's bang on.
Yes.
Those are the people that we want to reach out to say, yeah, we're with you. Come and join the coalition. And we want to reach out. And most of the members of Zone 1, other than Grand Prairie Public, do have small schools. Like Peace Wapiti has a whole bunch of them. Even Grand Prairie Catholic has a school in Beaver Lodge that may or may not be a small school. But if they don't have any small schools, then my recommendation is that we only take school divisions that have small schools in them and understand it. The rest of those folks in our Zone 1 have a role to support us, but they wouldn't necessarily be a part of the coalition. So I may not be a member of this committee after the 18th of February, because I think that is, there's just two different forces going on here. And I think that differently in that we may want to really tie up with Rural Caucus because they're already there, right?
Yeah.
And probably have.
But then again, don't have a
That's right.
requirement to have small schools to be part of it. That's my only issue.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
But Greater St. Albert Public School Division is a member of Rural Caucus, but they may have out of the Morinville area, they may have some small schools. So what I'm going to suggest to this committee on the 18th is that we reach out to people that have small schools in their division. They're suffering from funding the same as we are. They're robbing from their Peter to pay their Paul. And hopefully that'll work. I just want, I guess, the blessing of this board moving forward, that that's kind of what we see doing. Because 6 out of 13 of our schools are small schools. So we're probably at a higher percentage than most of the other divisions around the province. And when we reach out to pull people into this coalition, we want to make sure that they are suffering the same way we are and they understand it, right?
Yeah.
So why are you saying that you might not be on the committee after the 18th?
Well, I think that the committee maybe want to go to do, they may want to take that small out of there and just call it a rural school funding. Right? Because there's all kinds of things that are happening with just rural schools, whether you have 175 or 200 in there, it's hard to recruit, it's hard to retain, you can't get mental health support, there's all kinds of things that you can't do. So if the group is going to be defined as small rural schools, then the divisions in the coalition have to have, my opinion, small rural schools. If not, then it's something different.
Grand Prairie's thinking northern schools.
Yeah, or they're thinking, yeah. At the time when we talked about it, Grand Prairie Public was, oh, they're a part of Zone 1 and they're definitely going to support and they'll be a loud voice for us. Yes, but are they a part of the coalition? Because when you walk up to the table, to the ministers and say, here's a coalition of, 35 school divisions across the province that have rural small schools, and we have a problem. It has to be all, in my opinion, divisions that have small schools.
I say we bless you.
And anoint you.
We bless you and anoint you.
Okay, thank you.
Again, not saying the committee can't do great things, focusing on rural schools.
I may
Because
even,
maybe that's not your wheelhouse that you want to put time into.
well, I think within our school division, we went from 9 small schools out of 15. And we closed one small school, and we took 2 small schools and made them into one that's not a small school now in Manning. So we're 6 for 13. And my focus, I think the committee could do great work on small schools or rural schools. I think you do great work on that. I want my focus to be on small schools. So.
Sounds good.
Nothing else from the ASBA.
The only other thing I was going to mention was the Edwin Farmer and Friends of Education. We usually do that February.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we used to have a bit of an extended deadline, but now the timeline is going to be consistent throughout the province. So yesterday in the meeting, they said that the superintendent who's chairing this year is Jesse Shirley, right? We'll be sending something out shortly, but the deadline to have the package in is March 15th. So we have to get the nominations done, all of the paperwork about getting evaluations done. It's going to be shifted back by about a month now
And that's for Friends of Education
as well.
Okay. So that maybe we'll put that on in February.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Friends of Education, if anyone can think of people, businesses, organizations, because that's something as the board decide, right? Okay. Anything else for ASBA? I'm trying to think. Okay, do we have time to go to? I have 2 things open for you. PSBAA. Maria's not here. She is going to the PSB CCC February 5th, 6th, I believe. We do have that as the public school board. The one rep goes and then we can alternate if somebody else wants to go to that. It would require that you would miss the joint municipality meeting because I believe it starts the 5th at 8 a.m. So you have to be in Edmonton for the 4th, which is the joint municipality meeting. Other than that, I don't think she's had any. So I guess if anyone wanted to do that, is there any interest in going?
I definitely would like to go at some point in time, but I don't want to do it this
Me
time.
too, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't want to miss joint municipality and don't really want to go to Edmonton.
Do we all go to the joint municipalities?
Yes. And we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Okay, and Rural caucus, 6.3.3, is there anything?
Season's greetings. Over that.
Okay, let's break for lunch. We'll come back in camera at 1, should be fine.
Good, it's almost.
Yeah, it's, yeah, so we'll come back in camera and then we'll pick back up on 5.5.1 afterward. Before we move on, from business held in camera, I'd like to make a motion. I wrote it out, to direct administration to write a letter for the board chair's signature, responding to
A student.
a concerned student.
Yep.
Letter that we received on January 6th. Is that enough? Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor? We are 6. Thank you. And that was all. Great. Okay, we will now move back up to 5.5.1, the joint municipality meeting. We'll do that. Yeah. It'll just coincide there. So if you want to pull up, this is the rough agenda as of now. So just a refresher, the joint municipality is all the towns and the counties, governance and administrative staff are invited to this. It's always a hybrid, so there'll be people here in person and there'll be people via Zoom. Usually a good mix of both, I feel like, isn't it? And the terms of reference is also there, that kind of outline that we're not going to talk about operational matters, that we're really going to get into the governance of things. So I guess we have to decide on our agenda items. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, just make sure that you're still in agreement with the terms of reference and then deciding on the.
Oh, I didn't realize that, sorry. Can you do that first? Everyone wants to pull up the terms of reference.
Where are the terms of reference?
In 5.1 point, or 5.5.1.1. All the points. They're pretty basic. Does anyone have any issues with any of them?
No issues, Madam Chair, but just under the limitations, it says the committee is not intended to solve individual or personal grievances. Again, because in the past, there would have been members in attendance who might have brought a matter up that was directly related to their own child or their brother's or sister's child, I'd say. Rather, it should focus on local or societal context matters. And I would probably at some future point in time add a piece to that saying that, just to be more explicit, individual or personal matters should be addressed through the division's normal processes for resolving matters of that nature. In other words, to perhaps use language similar to what we have put in place for stack and TBAC in terms of reference, say agenda items need to be items that are not individually based, and if they are, there's a path or an avenue for that to be. That obviously doesn't have to be done now, but when we go back and look at these later, we can adjust. I think the spirit of it is still there, and that is this is not a time to address individual personal matters.
Did you send these out with the, so we wouldn't want to change it when we
No.
send it out.
No,
It
no,
would be
I just-
something we'd look at after the fact.
Yeah.
But you can also talk about them at the meeting, right? And
Yes.
then any changes that come up from the meeting then can be updated.
Do you need a motion for these or that was just for discussion?
No, that was just that we'll do that later, just to flag it around.
So it's saying board, but I thought on the calendar it was at 12 at Davis in Peace River. No, maybe that's something else. Okay, so it's here.
It's here.
And that's usually about time, 7 to 9, that seems tight.
It is, but also any longer, I think you just, it's a lot of people and it's a lot of information. But also I think we have this conversation, to have that conversation of, if you want to talk with us, let us know, like we'll meet with any county or any town. I think if they want to sit down, we've done it with, usually because there's an issue, but
Don't wait for this annual meeting.
yeah, we don't have to wait for this annual meeting. It's just a good chance to get everyone together because, most counties probably have the same issues or we have the same issues with all the counties or whatever, right? So,
Yeah. And Madam Chair, I think there used to be a time when these meetings were situations where the counties, the towns, municipalities were invited. The trustees sat around with staff and around the firing line. How come you're not doing this? What are you doing with mental wellness? What about boom, 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 boom? And then we thought, you know what? That's not the purpose of this meeting. This meeting is not set up by the board so that municipalities can have open season for 2.5 or 3 or 4 hours to just let loose. And last year, I actually wasn't in attendance last year, but the chair last year scripted it in a way, and I understand it went really, really well, whereby the board who's arranging the meeting took control of the meeting and said, here are the key messages we want to deliver, and had a little bit of time for others to share items that they wanted to deliver. And you're quite right. There would never be enough time to unpack this. So if somebody raises an issue, the chair of the meeting says, yeah, you know what, that's a really important matter. And, that's something we'd like to follow up with your council on a little later. And if there's more than one, we can perhaps have a separate meeting where 5 municipalities or 3 would come together and have that separate conversation, that kind of thing. So then you can sort of finish within the blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so what do we want to talk about? So it says advocacy here for us. Is that what we want to talk about? Like go through our advocacy sheet, or are there other topics you want to talk about?
Well, the whole meeting last year was on that advocacy sheet, right?
I was,
Oh, but that's all it was.
Yes, it was.
100%. That's what it was.
So it might be advocacy, and if we talk about communications.
I think communication is for sure. How do we communicate?
There were a few other issues, bus driving, bus drivers came up, like as in people passing buses, et cetera.
Yeah.
And having the communities help us with that. But it was mostly on
But we had that meeting, and then we had the meeting with the Clarehouse County, with the CAO and a couple of their counselors. And at both meetings, the big meeting and the small meeting, the people were surprised at our funding. So I think if we spoke on funding, particularly what happens in small schools, when you drop from 36 students or 35 students to 34 students, you drop from $480,000 to $26,000. That's always a nice big shock. Or when you drop from 115 to 114, you drop by $86,000. I think that it would be nice if these guys understood that, because there's a lot of people that are out there now getting ready to march for this small school funding thing. And if our municipalities are on side, that'd be great.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I would love something we could give, like, or even pull up the different ranges, knowing very well it could change. Probably will, but like we said, probably not drastically, and it's probably somehow gonna be. But also, this is what we're living with, and this is
Yeah.
why Dixonville was closed, and this was, you know, I like that.
Just a decline.
Like, yeah, if all of a sudden you drop 2 kids, that might drop you 80,000, like Heinz Creek, what, like where we're at right now from what?
So, Madam Chair, if, you know, I think the advocacy, I'm not suggesting necessarily that the entire meeting be around the advocacy pieces, but it is a wonderful opportunity to have all municipalities represented, so you could share with them what it is you are passionate about and advocating on. Then there's the, you know, the funding piece. Another one could be student absenteeism. Excuse me, and just absenteeism and how, and this is now a national and international issue. I heard, you know, in the news last couple of days that throughout Canada now, unprecedented levels of absenteeism. It's almost as if students are saying, you know what, education is not relevant to me, and I'm just going to go to school when I feel I want to go to school. So it's almost like shifting us back 100 years. So having that conversation, that's like, you know, we could tie in like
Tie into the bus driver
yes.
shortages and the,
you got
and the.
the road conditions, and when students are out of buildings, when buses are not running, here's the impact. I shared one list with you.
Yeah.
That could be, we could put together a little something on that. And the advocacy piece would be, you know what, folks, every time you have an opportunity to engage in conversation with parents and grandparents of children, impress upon them the importance of trying to get to school, because it does make a huge difference. Okay, second one.
You know, one thing, yeah, gets to school, a hot lunch. And I was just thinking, that 300 grand to spend from now till the end of the year. Hot lunches for everybody. Come to school. You gotta be at school to have a hot lunch.
Well, most of our schools have hot lunches already, don't they?
You pay.
They're varying.
Maybe?
They vary and some are paying.
Yeah, it varies.
Maybe?
Sometimes
Certain days a week.
twice a week, yeah. But this changes it.
When the buses are canceled, the hot lunch is canceled.
Anyway,
So, sorry, but just to get back onto the funding piece again, where we'll talk about particularly the model, and then let's talk about utilization, because we miss out on the funding for utilization too. Let's talk about how, you know, like Cleardale right now is, our general assignment is 19%. So we get 19% of the snow removal, the power and the gas budget to run that school. So we should be.
those would be my top ones. Some education on the funding between enrollment and utilization.
Yeah.
Attendance in how it affects. Because most of them probably, if you just said attendance, that's not something that's in their wheelhouse that they feel like they can help. But when you say attendance, the ones who want to come to school can't, because all of a sudden we don't have a bus driver, or we don't have a road that the bus driver can see drive on. That's something they can help with.
Well, I think they can help with your parents understanding how important it is for the kids who go to school, even when the buses are running and they're not going to school, right?
Yeah, because often their parents are still going to work, right?
Well, even if it's a beautiful sunny day out there, the kids aren't going to school, mom's taking them to Costco. That's happening every day of the week. And I think if we can start with a room full of 30 people, that's a start. Because like Jeff said, when we went through the AERR, like, if we'd have had 90% attendance across the division, the AERR would have been different.
The other thing we talked about a couple of years ago, Madam Chair, was the unprecedented time that we're in with regard to recruitment and retention. And just to throw out there to municipalities, like, do they have some things that, some avenues or mechanisms, structures and processes in their system that could be potentially helpful in partnering with us around to help, one, initially recruit staff, and two, retain them?
Yes. And they communicate
The only
this
real
to our
example,
people to communicate it out, right?
yeah, so the only tangible example we had at that time was in Red Earth Creek that particular year. the MD decided that they were going to give a break to any teacher who showed up with children who needed to go to daycare. They were going to give a substantial incentive, reduced daycare rate, something like that. Just a little something to hang your hat on and to make a little difference. So other things that they have, for example, that we could give to our HR department. So when we're recruiting during job fairs, we would say, did you know that in the, the west end of our school division, there's 20 public trails, there's a ski hill that operates, 3 months a year, that kind of thing. Little things that might help us.
And I know they like to take something with them. They want to be like, give us a piece of paper that we can like have with us to know what we advocate.
Right.
So have we revamped our nice advocacy?
And there was a version, that was, I think, given to you guys.
Yeah.
And so I was just waiting for feedback from you guys to say, yes, run with that.
Okay.
But I mean, all these topics that you just discussed too, I imagine like we'll have slides or whatever. We can condense it into a
Yeah,
handout.
because I just remember that from one of the meetings where they're like,
Yeah.
we can talk about it all day long, but give me something so that I can have it with me.
And Madam Chair, even if you establish at that meeting, back to the communications piece, like what is the most efficient way for the Peace River School Division to communicate with each municipality? Is it through the CAO? Is it through even if they said, hey, we'll get to you, here's our contact person, or here's the way that our advocacy plan can be communicated later. So there's a conversation that unfolds. People say it would be really good if we had a little briefing note on that. And you say, well, you know what, we can get something, we can prepare something and get it out to you. How is it best delivered?
Yeah.
And if they say just through our CAO or whatever, each municipality might be slightly different, or they might have the exact same.
Do you think that's enough guidance for our person?
So you said you're going to look at funding, attendance. We talked about the advocacy plan. We're going to update that in some fashion. Yeah, and so I mean, if you take an hour, say just roughly an hour to do, even 45 minutes to do the piece for the division, and then open it up for 45 minutes for 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 items that are on the agenda. We'll know that before the meeting. Then 15 or 20 minutes for a round table closing off.
And this 6.1 Pines Creek obviously sent this in. And do we not have a people with them yet? Or where did this?
It apparently came from Pines Creek. In December, I sent a draft copy of a joint use planning agreement document that we can work to, like me and the CAO can work together to bring back to the respective boards and council. So I mean, if we're going to talk about JUPAs, I don't think it should be limited to Pines Creek because there are many MDs and communities that don't have them and need to have them.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I got the request, I threw it on.
No,
there.
yeah, totally.
Before talking, like, I don't know that it should be
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
just
I don't
didn't
think it
want to
should be.
lose it.
I think we
Should
should
we
put,
put JUPA on and?
Yeah. I think so. And any communities that don't have an agreement with us, and to date, the board has signed one with Peace River. They're due by June 30th and they've been extended for 4 years, 3 years now. So
This is an HP record.
I think it's,
It's a village.
so I think it's not an individual topic, it's a main one. Get a hold of me and I will start the process from there.
And not their counselors, their whatever,
Usually the CAO will
CAO.
get in touch with me and we can start to work.
which then again, this is kind of half operational.
But this is,
It has to be approved by council and
No, I
trustees,
know.
so, but I mean, there's work to do before it gets to that level. So.
this is a requirement from the Minister of Education.
And no, it's in the Municipal Government Act.
Oh.
So that sounds to me like it's more their problem.
It's on them.
Well, it really is, but I was the only one that was talking about it years ago, and then everybody looked at me like I was from outer space, so I just stopped talking about it. No, and now people are concerned. So what the document I'm sharing is a municipal document that is a draft of what an agreement could look like. It's not, and my thoughts, it's their own document, but nobody seems to know how to find it.
Because this isn't like the joint use agreements. These are just the,
It's two parts. It's planning. So how our reserves and school reserves, all that kind of stuff dealt with, and any joint use agreements. It doesn't make sense how it's combined into one document because they don't fit together at all. But that's what the expectation is. So we don't have one with the town of Grimshaw. We have a joint use agreement with the town of Grimshaw, but we don't have a joint use planning agreement. So it's interesting, but as people are getting a hold of, like, they'll get a hold of Jeff and say, what do we do? And he'll send them my way and say, this is how we can start. Most of them are going to be really small agreements because there's not a lot that needs to be in there. Like, I don't think we're planning on building a new school in Worsley or Pines Creek anytime soon. But there's still a requirement for reserve land for schools.
last year, did you guys meet early and kind of pick who was gonna talk about what?
Well, that was, well ahead of time. It wasn't just early.
Oh,
It was a,
because I remember the last one that I came to, we kind of
I think,
decided the day of.
no, Edith, wasn't it like weeks before or a couple of weeks ahead of time? I want you and I to talk exactly the same thing we did last year, remember?
It was probably a week before.
What's that?
It was probably a week before. Adam, we had a whole presentation and Adam went over it. You guys each had like a topic.
And it was perfect.
Yeah.
Because Lori get up there and just from the whole thing. It was awesome.
I will never do that.
Oh, yeah, no, Edith?
Yeah. Yeah, they
Edith
each
and I
had
were
a,
just sitting there, oh, geez, I don't want to get up. I don't want to say anything.
yeah, it was like number 6 is you, number 7 is you,
Yes.
number 8 is you, and then Lori chaired it, right? Because
Oh, she talked about everything.
I was gonna say, but
Lori just knows
she
it.
did most of the talking. That wasn't a criticism. She
Yeah.
just,
No,
she did, ran the show. It was great.
And I think that,
I didn't get yelled
And
at.
again,
It was
you're not
good.
getting that from me.
I think it was perfect.
there's high expectations.
Yeah. We do lower them now.
When we start talking about, funding, small school funding in particular, and, utilization funding, are we gonna have some pictures or charts or graphs or something to show? Or is it gonna be handouts? Are we gonna project here? And last year, we didn't have the room set up like this. We had it set up where everybody was in a different place, and I'm not sure that we could have utilized I don't think everybody could have seen the screen.
Right.
I think we'll figure that out when I put the information together and share it with Jeff. We'll find a way that makes the most sense. I think handouts might be the best. And if it's handouts, again, the information is going to be high level out of the funding manual. What is going on, because we don't usually give out handouts on a lot of other fiscal stuff in the middle of the year, right? But all of the information will be relevant and agree to what the current funding manual says.
Yeah, whatever we hand out here, we'll then need to be mindful that we have to get it out to perhaps 7 or 8 or 10 people online as well.
Yeah.
And do they bring items to the agenda as well?
Yeah, so Chris is inviting, just an invite out now. The items come forward.
And so far, all we've got is the, right?
And once the item comes forward and decision is made as to whether or not it's in compliance with the terms of reference or not, and if it's not, we get back to it and say, hey, that one needs to be dealt with in a separate kind of way versus at this meeting.
I'm not sure that if we have, but if we have it all figured out a week in advance, which is next week or the week after, that we couldn't just shoot it off to the concerned parties and they can bring their own handouts, right?
Yes, if it was done in advance, say, hey, here's what's gonna be talked about, and then put the onus on them to print it if they want to bring it.
Yes, Chris.
That doesn't always work. Forget them. They didn't know, they didn't see the email and we end up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you'd have some printed copies there anyway.
Yeah.
okay. Are we good then?
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, we can put together some pieces here and get it back to the trust, you and the rest of the trustees for consideration, and then hopefully.
Lovely. Oh, yeah, now.
Six something.
6.4. 6.4.1 trustee calendar.
How about 6 for the board annual work plan? When you open that up, like we have the board's annual work plan that we just approved in our policy, right? Policy 2, appendix A. And I'm wondering why we don't use that. And the reason to use that is because as we're making mistakes going along, then we can update this, keep notes on it, and when we update it. Because in January on this one, it says that we should determine the ASBA Edwin Parr nomination.
Ooh.
That's just something that we had talked about earlier today, but I looked at this earlier the week. All I'm saying is, would it make sense on the board agenda instead of having the annual work plan that we have there now, replace it with appendix A from this policy?
Because we were supposed to determine today the Echo Park person.
Well, according to this, I mean, and there will be mistakes on here, Wanda, but I think if we're living this, you know, and we'll say, oh, February, well, that should have been in March, then we can kind of make notes, and the next time we do this, it'll get closer to being right.
Yeah.
This will be the one we work off of all of them, and this is the 12 months, not just the 2.
Yeah.
So we can do that for the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay, January 2026
On the calendar, yeah.
on the calendar. There's nothing else. This calendar. Does anyone else have anything the rest of January?
The council meeting next Monday.
I have one on the 21st.
I have one the 24th.
I have one this week.
And I have a classroom complexity meeting on the 21st.
Is that what that was?
Yes.
19th.
Board chair and superintendent. Something or other.
And you just report to them.
They just report to us.
Yeah, they're just giving us an information update as to where things are.
Oh, okay.
Initially, it was open for everyone, right? And then they called that back
I
again.
think, yeah.
Well, I signed up for the Zoom meeting on the original one. That was yesterday morning at 9 o'clock.
And that one was the second schedule because there was a one earlier than that, then it was scheduled till yesterday morning. And now rescheduled. So this is the third date now.
We have a policy meeting set for
Oh, yeah.
the 20th.
What time did we do that?
We usually have them from 9 till 3 or 1 till 9 till 3:30.
Oh, no, that's a good question.
Oh, I didn't have one yesterday.
No, didn't have it.
And get Kristen to look at the room.
Rescheduled
That'd be awesome.
yesterday and then last
She hear us? Or we just-
Well, we'll have to talk.
She's listening.
Lacey, there's that meeting on the 19th.
Oh, yes. That's at 1 o'clock.
Peace River.
Peace River. And that is, what's it called?
It's a joint use planning agreement meeting with the town and the school divisions just to fix up some of the things in the agreement.
That's the one that, trustee Dick is on that committee? She said that she was gonna ask you to go. She talked to me about it, and I said, it's Peace River, I don't have anything to do with it.
No,
Rhonda had asked, Jeff had asked me if I would go.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I didn't realize, that Marie was on that particular committee. So this one is a meeting with the town. The mayor is going to be there and, other, officials of the town. So when did we get that invite?
It came a while ago, but,
So I would say the chair should be there, but if Marie was going to be there and she can't, and you were going to be a delegate to them, and that was the meeting, then there's no reason, why you couldn't be there either, but I think the chair should be at that meeting.
Yep, I really.
and that one is also here. Oh, that one is, in the call for news. Why, maybe I changed it.
Okay, and then February, we have joint municipality at 7 on the 4th. And we have zone 1 on the 11th, I believe, and Tiva on the 11th. I have Tiva. And we have our board meeting on the 19th.
We're gonna student council on the 9th.
Okay. I have school council on the 4th, which I'll have to say.
I have the 5th and the 18th, and then that.
Where's zone 1 at? Zone 1 is still virtual for February. And March?
And March.
Yes.
And
two more
we're
virtual,
hosting
and then we host in April.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Oh, and I believe on the 9th, we have some type of board chair superintendent.
Yeah, there is, that one is, the meeting that they have in Calgary. They invite people to go, but in the last last year, I myself and Crystal did it virtually, and the year before I did sat in on Adam's behalf as well and did it virtually, so we hadn't gone to the one in Calgary. And I'm going to be away that week, anyway, Madam Chair, so
Okay,
if we will be.
and there's no benefit to go to it, is there? It's not worth
Not, well, the two times that, the time that I suggested to Crystal we do it virtually, when it was over, she said, I'm really glad we didn't spend all that time and
Yeah,
effort.
I think I remember
us having that conversation. Minister comes in, there's a few Q&A pieces, and then there are maybe some other government officials, and yeah, it wasn't hugely earth shattering. I mean, not that there was anything wrong with it necessarily, but hard to justify spending 3 days, and significant expense to go there when you can do the virtual option.
Sounds good. Okay, attendance to, at the Alberta Rural Education Symposium, March 1st to 3rd. I printed off a couple of these. I don't know if anyone needs one. It's the itinerary for the 2 days.
I have it
You
online.
probably-
It's attached there, isn't it?
Oh, is it attached? Oh, that's what I know. I didn't obviously look. So this isn't something that we covered for everyone as like under our policy, but it could fall under your extra $3,000 PB.
Did we spend some of that already when we went to something? When we went to the ASBOA?
When you went to ASBA?
Or I never remembered exactly.
You can do, 2 out of the 4?
2 out of the 4,
So
yeah.
you haven't spent any as of yet, because you went to one of your required, or like one of your included conferences. So you still have your 3,000 PP.
Oh,
It's not very clear, but if you go to policy 7, appendix B, it spells it out, like you've got your PSBA and ASBA spring, your PSBA and ASBA fall. Those are considered 4 conferences, and 2 of those are automatically included. So you can go to 2, right? I think you went to the ASBA this spring, so that would have been 1. Then the CAS were all, included in going to CAS, right?
I thought CAS was just for superintendents.
No, this is the Indigenous Education Conference.
They just host it, right?
Yeah, so according to that, the ASBA, SDM, FGM, PSBA, SGA, FBM, 2 out of those 4. The FNMI gathering, which is the CAS gathering, we're all included to go to that. Our monthly Zone 1 meetings, and then the Rural Caucus, when joined with ASBA, PSBAA, or ARES. When you're at one of those other conferences, you can tag into the Rural Caucus.
So when is the spring one for?
End of
End of May,
early
first part of June.
in Calgary.
Is that what the Indigenous head?
So
ASB.
Oh, sorry.
ASBA.
it's in Calgary at the Weston in
Usually late.
late May, early June. Last year it was May 30th and 31st and June 1st, 2nd or something like that. And they're both together.
Oh, they're all.
ASBAA is the 28th to the 30th of May, and the ASBA is June 1st.
So yeah, this one, I have never attended, Lori has, I think, attended it multiple times and loved it. I know Crystal attended it last year and really enjoyed it. Anyone interested in going? Okay,
Where's it at?
it is at the River Creek, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. I've heard somebody lately. I'm planning on going.
I would like to.
You enough for Chris to book at this point, or you're
Are
still-
you, when do I need to know for sure? Like right now?
Well, I have rooms booked.
Oh.
But sooner the better, because they do have a cancellation.
So where, you book us into the River Creek?
Oh, nice.
I haven't gone the last 2 years, so my intentions were to go this year as well, but if there's too many of us going, I can put it off for another year.
I don't know if there's,
What's that?
you can do what you want.
No, I know, it's just, yeah, no, for sure. And I think that, yeah. So far, yes, I'm a yes.
So this one's not tied up with a rural caucus, right?
No.
But it's rural education that's sort of, it would impact rural caucus, wouldn't it?
Yes, like I think they're, like they help with it, but it's not a rural caucus. Right, yeah. And there is an extra, there's an ASBA presentation after the closing of this agenda that we have.
And I'm not attending nothing. That goes till 3 o'clock, right? And I definitely want to be on, either that or I stay another night. I don't want to spend money on a hotel. So I'm hoping somebody can tell me what happened at that presentation.
Janet, what are you thinking?
I'm not sure, it does not tie in with John's thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, if somebody, if I could teach a ride with somebody, I'd probably go, but if not, I won't bother.
I'm already gonna be in whiteboard, so I can't.
No, no problem.
So if you change your mind, I don't know what the deadline is. I know I looked, I think it's not till February.
When do you need to cancel those?
Usually it's 3 or 4 days before,
Oh,
but you would have to register, like, for the conference itself before that.
Is this something you're interested in, Jeff, or are you going?
With Chris booked rooms, I indicated to book rooms for everybody, so that then it's better to book them and peel off a little later. So I have booked it, but, I'm just gonna wait and see what the,
or I could do air miles and just lie down. I've got 10 different miles.
Okay, River Creek is a bit of a ways from the airport though, right? Well, yeah, it is still a bit of a ways from the airport.
Shuttle.
Passenger drive.
Yeah.
Eh?
It's called passenger drive.
Yeah. I did, text trustee Dick because I knew she was gonna be out of the country today. And I seen that this was on the agenda and she said, please put her name forward for it.
It'd be kind of nice if we could all go to something.
Watch,
together.
because she's already signed up for another one this
Pardon
time. It might be over her meeting. Okay.
Yeah, all I had was her text so much.
So the reason I'm a little bit doubtful, I would really like to go to this one, but we're hoping to fly out on the fourth, so it depends a little bit on what time we're gonna be leaving on the fourth. So I need to get back on the third in time to leave again the next day. As soon as I know what our plans are there, then I'll. Get this.
It says registration closes February 27th.
Oh, that gives us lots of
Which is
time.
really cut or close, I feel.
Wow, no kidding,
That's what it said.
eh? No, it's definitely sold out.
Well, I guess there's always that possibility that it tells it.
Does anybody know this Kevin
Lamore?
He did a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Oh,
sorry, I'll look this guy up.
If you go on the website, it shows all their. Anyway, okay. Let Chris know if things change. Moving on. Attendance of the CAS Indigenous Education Gathering. Do we have to know this one, or is this kind of just to get it in people's heads?
Just to get it in people's
Okay.
minds so that they can plan, so that we can, when it gets closer, we know what's going on.
This year it took a double tree, right? Did somebody say that?
Yeah, it might, yeah, I think it is.
I was gonna say, I think it is, they moved, the CAS event, so from the fantasy land, so I would guess that yes.
I don't know. If you're making the list, Chris, you can put my name on for that one, because I want to go to that one.
Which one is that?
The
This is
FNMI
the
gathering.
Indigenous
Yes.
gathering. What's up the River Creek?
Yeah, I got it written.
Yeah.
Look at the River Creek.
Oh, this guy's a politician.
22nd to 20th.
Well, it's not at the double tree. But the River Creek, this is easy to get to, right?
So in the past, the board, tried to make an effort for all trustees to attend that, but
Yes.
then that when it's hard to achieve that sometimes, and, I've been to, 2 or 3 of these over the last 8 years, and, I think, well, you've got a process in place with regard to attendance at.
Yes, this one is open to anyone.
Yeah, then you, if you choose to have that as one of the ones you want to go to.
I've gone twice. One I loved, one I didn't love as much, but I think it, from what I heard, people who've gone to multiple ones, that's kind of how it sometimes works. Sometimes the vibes are a little different each year. But overall, I've always come out learning something. Definitely.
I've gone to 2. One was better than the other, but out of all the conferences I've gone to, I enjoy this one the most. I think it's because where I am at my learning for truth and reconciliation, I find it's a good place to be. I feel like I come out of there with some good learning, good results.
We'll put this one back on for next month, probably. Everyone can
And then we,
take some time.
then we book rooms for this one, yeah. So we have rooms booked for everybody in the event that that's what's going to happen.
I'm 99% sure I'll go.
And this is in Edmonton as well.
It's at River Creek as well. Yep.
So, yeah.
Which I always wondered why it wasn't at River.
Driven past that River Creek. It's on the way to Devon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, then that should be not too far from the airport.
Is it double tree?
No, it's at River
No,
Creek.
the CAS
Yeah,
this year
it's,
is in
yes.
Street.
Like Eatonson, right?
They usually have them. like-
Okay,
But this thing is at River Cree, right? This-
they're both there,
Yes,
yeah.
they're both are.
That's pretty close. Denver's pretty close to the airport.
Like 30 minutes.
Probably a good half hour from the airport.
Closer than to Edmonton.
Okay, 2.2.
I, yeah, I did, just give me a chance to pull up your meeting. I've got so many things open now, and I don't normally do that way. I just wanted to talk about, motion number 2. At our last meeting, we determined that motion was done. As far as, tasking administration to work with Ward 7 trustee, to engage with the stakeholders, discuss their educational needs. I think that it's time that we put a board committee together to look at the same thing at the Middle Science School in Cleardale. So, if you guys want to have some discussion on it, or can I just make a motion on it?
I think a motion is sufficient.
Yeah, I would move that we form a board committee to find partners in the Cleardale area to work with to discuss the educational needs of the stakeholders.
Um, Do we pick who's on that committee before or just do the committee?
I think we can just, motion is in.
Motion first. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? We are 6. And now would we like to pick who's on the committee?
Sure. Like, to me, it makes sense that the chair is on there and maybe the vice chair. So that we show the community that we're coming out, and we're serious about it. And for sure, the Ward 7 trustee has to be on that committee as well.
Yep.
If there's no.
And you've had some experience with the.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
So they already know you. Is everyone comfortable with myself, David, and Edith? That doesn't have to be a motion, does it?
Yeah, because this is a new committee, so you're appointing.
Okay.
So does that motion then take this one off, or does it stay as a substantive motion, or how does that work?
Because this one's done, it's falling off.
Okay.
Good
So
follow-up.
the other one is just a normal regular motion.
Yeah. Hey, does someone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion that trustees Bajewski, trustee Giesbert, and trustee Rushton make up that committee.
Any further questions, comments? All in favor? We are 6. Okay, 2.6.1. Wanda. That was the
Oh, yes,
literary
literary.
material selection.
So I was sort of wondering about, classroom collections, the list of materials, and I just felt from my perspective, I had hundreds of books. And I wonder if we cannot advocate with the minister that, and particularly I'm thinking of elementaries, like the likelihood that they're gonna have something in the classroom collection. Anyway, so I just wonder what can we do to mitigate this? Because I can see that teachers will just say, I don't have time to go through and list every book that I've got. Maybe some of them already have, but anyway, it's a huge undertaking to ask of people that are heading into report cards and anyway.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, the trustee has raised a concern that was raised a long time ago when this ministerial order first came down. And you'll recall that after the first ministerial order, there was a leaking of a document from the Edmonton Public School Division that had, say, 200 titles that were destined to be banned, including some pretty famous pieces of Margaret Atwood and Company. So there was a pause on it, and then a new ministerial order, an updated ministerial order was created. And there was, at the time as well, there were some protests from teachers who actually took their entire collection of books, put them out on the lawn in front of the school with a sign saying free for the taking because they weren't going to go through the list. Governments, the new ministerial order came back to say, well, school boards have to have their list of all resources available for any parent to see, who can then object to any title and say, I don't want that in the school. The classroom teacher didn't have to publicize their list. They had to create a list and have it available for a parent who asks, or secondly, if they don't create a list, if a parent asks what are the titles, to invite the parent in and to go through the list of materials. So we were given until January 5th to have this in place. So the advocacy around that now is done. And the board in the fall, passed updated its policy to say, that, I would do an administrative procedure, ensure that an administrative procedure was completed that would be in compliance with the ministerial order. So we had conversations early in the year with our administrators. They had conversations with their teachers, and in fact, during the teacher strike, a number of EAs in schools, one of the things they did was going to teachers' classrooms, and they identified item by item, the list of resources in each classroom. But yes, no doubt, it can be, and would be a very significant piece of work for many teachers who have really comprehensive lists. To the notion of the objectionable materials, the minister, when he did the press conference about this back in the spring, identified 4 titles that were deemed to be very objectionable, and these were 4 titles that somebody had flagged to the minister. When we did our search, of those 4 titles, none of them exist in any of our schools at any grade level. Now, does that mean that we have no titles that's, parents, would object to? No. It's possible that, parents could look at our list of resources in schools and call into question a particular resource based on its title or whatever, in which case, we will have a process outline that parents can use to flag and raise concerns about titles that they might see removed, potentially removed. So this AP Air is only, this is a part of it. The second part of it is an appendix, which we nearly have completed now. So we met the requirement to have the administrative procedure done by January 5th. We have another, probably an hour or 2 of work to finalize an appeal process, a complaint process, a mechanism for parents to object to materials, along with the form, and then that will all be joined together, and we will be in full compliance with the administrative order.
Any further questions on that? If not, do you want to make a motion to receive that?
Sure.
All in favor? We are 2.7.2.
Didn't give myself enough. It was class size and complexity.
Yes, from the PSDA.
Oh dear. Yeah, I should have made more notes on why I like that.
I'm notorious.
Oh, good, I'm not alone. Yeah, darn. I might have to look through and find it. Yeah, sorry, can we go on to the next one?
The next one here is too.
All right.
I think the next one was answered, at least my part of the question.
We could feel like just move it for information.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome.
We can just take a minute if you want to.
No, I was just wondering, net book value 0 and they declined. I was just like, what? And so I'm good.
Okay, so 2.7.6, you'll move for information.
It sure. Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? We're 6. And then if you want to take a minute and figure out what you wanted to ask on 2.7.2.
Yeah, I might have to pull my.
And we are going to get an update to on that committee, whatever day that is. So in February, we can talk with that.
Ready topics, yeah, probably, yeah.
If you wanna move it for information, or we can,
Just ignore it, just ignore the red hole.
okay, so we'll move it for information. All in favor? We are six. Okay, is that everything? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? David, all in favor? We are six. Thank you, everyone.